So, from my irresponsibility, I'm going to hopefully teach you guys or kind of help you guys out in deciding whether or not a spiky baby is necessarily the best pet for you to get at this moment of time. Hello everybody and welcome to my video. I've been meaning to make this video for quite some time, but now I finally got around to it, and here we go. When you come to Korea and you are an animal lover, you know deep down in your heart that you're probably going to hit up all the cat cafes and all the dog cafes, or you are probably going to consider getting a pet in Korea. For me personally, I knew I was probably going to get a pet in the end, even if it was really irresponsible of me. I'm going to be talking about my pet, Uyu, who is a little bit grumpy now because I woke her up from her nap. So this is Uyu. I adopted her from another teacher who actually was going back to California because hedgehogs are actually not allowed in California, and I decided to take her in hopes to bring her back to Canada. So I've had her for almost 2 months now. They are generally really easy to take care of. If you want any care tips, I would definitely recommend watching any YouTube videos discussing hedgehogs, how to take care of them, what's the best kind of environment for them, and kind of going a bit on that. I'm still very inexperienced about taking care of hedgehogs, but she seems very happy and healthy. So I'm just going to generally talk about going about getting one or acquiring one, some of my general tips, having one, and yeah. The first thing first, you can acquire a hedgehog various different ways. I got her, like I said earlier, from another teacher who happened to be moving away to California. So you can also get them at pet stores. If you are familiar with E-Mart, you can get one there, definitely. And you can also get them their food and all the general necessities. The only thing I did notice that you couldn't get at E-Mart was their cages. Now, hedgehogs actually need a relatively large space just to generally be happy. They can get to be around Uyu size. Like, I'm pretty sure the baby size is about half of what she could have initially been, but she's a little bit of a fatty from my perspective. So maybe your hedgehog will be much smaller, but yeah, she's a little bit on the big side if you don't know how big hedgehogs can get. I'm not sure if she's necessarily the biggest hedgehog, but yeah, she is a big girl, in my opinion. You also don't want to touch your face when you're handling them for various different reasons, mostly for health, just to make sure that you yourself are healthy. If you do your research, you will know that hedgehogs actually have to move in order to basically go to the bathroom, and that's why you need a wheel for them. It's kind of obvious that they're probably going to get some of their feces and stuff like that onto their quills, so when you're handling them, you should make sure to wash your hands before touching any parts of your body. Other things that you don't need to worry about is that you can leave them alone, though not recommended, for extended periods of time. I have left her alone for probably 2-3 nights at most, and she has been fine because I do have a free feeder, which she actually, despite her size and her a little bit of her chubbiness, she actually is pretty good about eating portionally. But of course, at the same time, that means that most of the food I'm feeding her clearly has to be kibble. Now, a lot of hedgehog owners will tell you that the best food to give them would be definitely insects, preferably live, which you can also get at E-Mart, or to get them high protein cat food. Since I'm in Korea, I'm not necessarily sure which cat food is necessarily safe for her, and because I'm not fluent in Korean, I don't exactly know what's best. So I have done the irresponsible thing and gotten her hedgehog kibble, which is not necessarily the best healthy food for her. In terms of noise, they are pretty quiet, so that's always really good for people who don't really want a really noisy pet. The great thing about them, though, is because they're nocturnal, you don't need to worry about them kind of getting or developing that level of anxiousness, I guess. that, like, say maybe a dog or a cat may have during the daytime. But at the same time, that means when she wakes up during the night, she will be running on her wheel, or she'll be drinking from her water bottle, or she'll be eating and, you know, making all that kind of noise. So if you're not really happy with those little bits of noises, or you're really sensitive to noise, I would not recommend getting a hedgehog in that case. But otherwise, they pretty much keep to themselves. You only really need to give them the recommended like 30 minutes a day in terms of interaction, just to make sure that they are socialized with you. Fortunately for me, I didn't expect her to warm up to me this fast, as much as, you know, she's kind of like being really angry with me right now. One of the major things I want to talk about when it comes to getting a hedgehog is, how long are you planning on staying in Korea? Are you staying in long term? Does your country even allow those pets? And the list goes on. So hedgehogs are technically legal in Canada, but the main issue is that actually there are lots of restrictions that tell you that you cannot bring in your hedgehog. So if you are living in Korea and you want to bring your hedgehog over to Canada, unfortunately, at this current moment of time, you are not allowed to bring your hedgehog over with you to Canada. So if you happen to go to the automated import reference system and you type in hedgehogs, or you type in any other pet that you're kind of curious about whether or not you can bring them to Canada, which I highly recommend you do. I actually did not know about this. You can find out whether or not your pet can come over to Canada. This is based on the Canadian Inspection Food Agency, and they basically are the ones who will tell you if your pet is allowed into the country or they would be denied entry into the country. So hedgehogs unfortunately are on the list of to be denied, and there are no exceptions whatsoever, unfortunately. And the reason why for this is because for Korean hedgehogs, at least, they are more prone to foot and mouth disease. I'm not sure if China and Japan also follow under this, but I do know that they are also being denied. And because we have to protect the hedgehogs in Canada, they don't want to have a viral spread because of that. So until Korea becomes, like, you know, basic, you know how like Japan is basically a rabies-free country. If all the Korean hedgehogs are free of foot and mouth disease, or there is something that, you know, we can administer to hedgehogs in order so they don't have that, Korean hedgehogs are essentially just going to continue being on the denied list. And according to the inspector that I emailed regarding this, it's very unlikely that these rules will be lifted anytime soon. Unfortunately for me, depending on my circumstance, I don't know whether or not I'd be going home in the spring. I'm not sure if I'll be going home even later than that, but the fact still remains, the only two options I really have is give her up, or I take care of her until she basically dies. And I don't really think that's really an ideal situation for both me and the hedgehog. A couple things to note when you get a hedgehog is that you can't necessarily release them into the wild, because not only are they temperature sensitive, they are also domesticated hedgehogs. They are a special breed of hedgehogs. They are not meant to be outside. She was actually abandoned at one point, so she actually has she actually has some broken quills on the side, unnoticed. So that might have been something that happened to her when she was abandoned. Yeah, generally speaking, if you know that you're going to be moving back to your home country and you can't take your hedgehog with you back to your home country, then I would highly recommend you find them another home, which you can actually post up on, I believe, Adopt Korea Now, or something along the lines of that. I'll post it at the bottom of the video. Just to find them a new home, just to find them a proper home, and hopefully you will be able to, like I will be doing for her. I'm going to be ideally looking for a more permanent home for her, mostly because I don't want her to have to move around as much due to my irresponsibility. I already have done her terribly wrong by adopting her in the first place. So I want to really do her justice by finding her a proper home. Not saying that the previous owner who decided to choose me was irresponsible. I was under the impression I could bring her, so you know, the fault's on the both of us in that case. So to make sure that there aren't any other expats who make the same mistake as me, I will be posting down a link to the automatic import reference system, and this is specifically for Canadians. I'm not sure how it would be for Americans, but if Americans have this kind of system, I highly recommend any American expats to look into this, or even South African, European, basically any expats that are considering getting a pet and or considering getting an exotic pet especially. So in terms of my next video, hopefully I'll have this all sorted out. But thanks for watching my video. If you're getting a pet in Korea, good luck, and I hope that you at least adopt a pet. And if you do not want to commit, I definitely recommend at least fostering. I think there are foster systems in Korea. I'm not sure how to get into those systems, unfortunately. It's definitely something that I would consider before getting a pet, and then I saw her, so you know how that went. So if you have more self-control, definitely try to look into that. Any animal adoption center or organizations, I definitely recommend becoming friends with those industries or people if you want to consider at least fostering, because there's many animals out there who do need help or homes, really. And if you are lonely wanting a fur baby or friend to take care of, I definitely recommend looking into that. But yeah, until next time, hopefully I have everything sorted out, and yeah.